Well, it's another day, and the suspicion surrounding the Epstein files cover up continues. There are some very interesting new developments, and now the conservative mainstream media and political pundits and members of Congress have decided to just move on and say that it's not important after all. So we'll get into all of that, including one major point that I forgot to make in my previous video yesterday. And I'll get into why I think this strange, lackadaisical attitude surrounding the cover-up and the files is happening. And it's not what most people may think. There's a lot of wild conspiracy theories out there, a lot of people throwing President Trump under the bus, a lot of MAGA now, understandably suspicious, but then jumping to very wild and bizarre conclusions. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, because I'll get into all of it. Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's partner in crime, the only two involved in the conspiracy, according to the official story, and the Justice Department with Pam Bondi in charge. She said that she wanted to testify, purportedly in front of Congress, and a lot of people started getting excited about that, thinking that she was going to blow the lid off of it all, or the Democrats thought she was going to implicate Trump, but that testimony was blocked by Republicans. This was the head of the Drudge Report yesterday. And I don't think that she would blow the lid off of anything. If anything, her testimony would coincide with whatever the official story or whatever the deep state wants the official story to be. If she had anything to say, that would have been actual truth. If she wanted to reveal what was really going on, she would have sung like a bird in order to avoid her prison sentence. Sounds like Charlie Kirk got the call that his inquiries into the Epstein cover-up are too anti-Semitic for him to continue going down that road. And major credit to him for hosting the Student Action Summit, that's the Turning Point SAS Summit, over the weekend, where, well, almost all of the speakers were talking about it, despite Ben Shapiro saying that it's not on anybody's priority list. It ranks 0 in terms of any interest whatsoever. But this is what Charlie Kirk had to say yesterday.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine.
But Pam Bondi already lied and said that the files were on her desk for review, and then mysteriously they vanished, and there was nothing to see whatsoever.
I'm going to talk about the Epstein files, and I'm going to make the case that even though there are unanswered questions about Epstein, it is in fact time to move on. Part of being on a political team is maintaining a certain amount of maturity, recognizing you can't win them all, recognizing there are some things that are important to you that are less important to the guy that you've put in charge, who is trying to focus on things right in front of him. And so having a sense of perspective, having a sense of balance, having a sense of maturity, I think is more important even than getting to the bottom of what really happened with Jeffrey Epstein.
Here is former Congressman Natt Gates, who now hosts a show on OAN, One America News, who was on an intelligence committee back when he was in Congress. Certainly is no shill for Israel. He has made it very clear how our foreign policy is, how shall we say, corrupted by certain influences, and wasn't happy that that we did Israel's dirty work over in Iran. But here's what he had to say last night, and when I first saw this clip, I thought maybe this is what he said in the past, just kind of speaking in generalities, praising Pam Bondi, calling her absolutely fantastic. But this actually is what he said last night. And then be sure to stay tuned, because I'll get into why I think these things are happening.
President Trump never stopped building a business empire, a media empire, a political empire. We believe he has exactly the team to maximize success. Let's start with Pam Bondi. The Attorney General always takes a lot of flack in any administration, but look at what she has accomplished. The Bondi team successfully litigated away the judicial coup of nationwide injunctions.
He's talking about these district court judges which kept blocking President Trump's executive orders. And the Department of Justice in the Trump administration has done a lot of fantastic things. So that's not to say that we should just forget Pam Bondi's incompetence and lies surrounding the Epstein cover-up, but please continue.
They did that. They won that for us. They have created the legal infrastructure for highly effective deportations. She's got the cartels self-deporting. She has targeted the criminals and the gang networks. Attorney General Pam Bondi is a star and has our full admiration and support. To those who don't share my enthusiasm, look at how far we've come.
Okay, I agree that we've got a lot of wins, but to say that she has my full support, hell no. So I think there's a couple possibilities of what it is that's going on here. Zero of them involve President Trump being compromised by Jeffrey Epstein, because if that was the case, the deep state and the Democrats certainly would have rolled that out over the last 10 years in their quest to stop him. That would have been, at the very least, the October surprise last year, instead of just rehashing the claims that he likes Hitler and is the reincarnation of the Nazi leader. One of those possibilities, which I discussed yesterday, I consider to be highly likely, is that he may have been threatened. Probably not him personally, but obviously members of his family. He may have gotten that it is what it is talk. Just like the famous scene in The Irishman when Robert De Niro, who was playing Frank Sheeran, a mafia associate, was trying to convince Jimmy Hoffa, played by Al Pacino, that he needed to stand down and that it wasn't going to be allowed for him to run the union again, because it is what it is. Another possibility I think is highly likely, which I haven't heard anybody else talk about, so I'm curious to hear what you think. Leave a comment down below, is the Trump administration may have concluded that by releasing the information and allowing the American people and the world to see the extent of this operation and who was involved and how long it had been going on and the kinds of things these people were doing, it may shock the conscience, obviously it would shock the conscience of the average American, so much so that it would destabilize support, faith in our government as a whole, potentially even the economy. The story just gets stranger by the day. The House Democrats tried to force a release of the Epstein files, and then the House Republicans blocked it.
I move the committee make an order amendment number 50 to H.R. 3633, offered by Representative Khanna, which would require the Attorney General to preserve and release any records related to Jeffrey Epstein. Madam Chair, on February 21st, 2025, President Trump's own Attorney General, Pam Bondi, said on Fox News, the Epstein client list was sitting on her desk, quote, right now to review, end quote. Kash Patel, Trump's FBI director, said during his confirmation hearing that he would do everything, if confirmed, to make sure the American people knew, quote, the full weight of what happened, end quote. Patel, who now leads the FBI, said on the Benny Johnson show that the FBI was hiding the Epstein client list. Donald Trump Jr., the president's own son, tweeted out, and I quote, show us all the Epstein client list right now. Why would anyone protect those scumbags? Ask yourselves this question, and then the answer becomes very apparent, end quote. And now, forgive me, but suddenly these same people are telling us there's nothing to see here. Trump is posting that we should all just move on. Well, I want to know what the hell is in these files. And I think we all want to know why Trump is suddenly changing his tune and is so desperate to sweep this under the rug. But you know what? This also gets at his credibility. This is about trust. Republicans said, trust us, vote for us, and we will release these files. And here we are. They are backtracking.
This while Little Ben Shapiro said last week that there was zero interest in the Epstein files. It wasn't even measurable on a scale of what people are interested in. But after Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk and Laura Ingraham and others started talking about it at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit last weekend, now Ben Shapiro is furious.
Here is Tucker then asserting that it was actually Mossad. Again, without evidence, not a shock. Of course, this is where Tucker was going. This has become the hot speculation on the internet, is without evidence. You say that Mossad was running Jeffrey Epstein. When I say without evidence, I mean without evidence. Naftali Bennett, the former Israeli prime minister, said, quote, as a former Israeli prime minister, with the Mossad having reported directly to me I say to you with 100% certainty, the accusation that Jeffrey Epstein somehow worked for Israel or the Mossad running a blackmail ring is categorically and totally false.
Well, if the former Prime Minister of Israel, who worked hand in hand with Mossad, again, Israel's CIA, says that Jeffrey Epstein didn't work for them whatsoever, then that's all we need to hear, because world leaders, especially those who are heads of intelligence agencies or closely aligned, working with intelligence agencies and black ops, certainly would never lie. One of them, however, did meet with Jeffrey Epstein privately about 30 times after he was convicted back in the early 2000s of doing what he did. Ehud Barak, who was the prime minister and also the head of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, like their military over there, was meeting with Epstein dozens of times between 2013 and 2017. I think Dave Chappelle summed up the situation best when he hosted Saturday Night Live back in 2022 when he said this.
If they're black, then it's a gang. If they're Italian, it's a mob. But if they're Jewish, it's a coincidence, and you should never speak about it.
And if you're Jewish, like Dave Rubin, Conservative Inc.'s token gay guy who purchased several children with his husband and then was congratulated by countless brand name conservatives in the movement, then your ethnicity trumps the truth often, and Israel does no wrong whatsoever. So he responded to the former prime minister's statement that they had nothing to do with Epstein whatsoever, saying, powerful statement right here. Tucker is just making bleep up, because going after the Jews gets you clicks. That'll dry up soon, and he'll find another group to go after. My guess is Indians. But life is full of surprises. Tucker doesn't need clicks. Tucker doesn't need money. Tucker is wealthy. He was wealthy before he even became a famous political pundit because he's from a very wealthy family. Tucker could have retired decades ago. Tucker could have never worked a day in his life. He is not doing this for the clicks. He's doing it for the truth.
Why are you making all those noises? We haven't even done anything yet.
I know that. I'm trying to make you feel guilty. It's an old Jewish trick.
Comedian Rob Schneider, a Saturday Night Live veteran from back in the 90s when it actually was funny. The last time that it was funny, I guess even maybe into the early 2000s, it was still funny. But he is noticing things and saying things that few Republicans would dare say. All of these people are saying things that no Republicans would dare say, even in the last year, because things have just gotten so obvious that it's really impossible for them at this point to even keep their mouth shut. And it would be extremely suspicious if they did. But here he is at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit Conference last weekend, although trying to preface it and deflect the inevitable accusations of anti-Semitism first. But here's what he said.
Israel is a free country, and Israel is a country that we must always stand by. But until they become the 51st state or a territory, their lobbying must apply as foreign lobbyists. That's not anti-Semitic. You can support Israel completely and unabashedly, but also want AIPAC to apply as a foreign lobbying group.
This is quite stunning because up until recently, you would never hear any brand name conservative or anybody who wanted to be a brand name conservative ever mention AIPAC or even hint at Israel having any sort of undue influence over our foreign policy. But now, well, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. Others, however, are trying to stop this information from becoming common knowledge. Also at the Turning Point Conference over the weekend, Charlie Kirk, to his credit, hosted a debate between comedian Dave Smith, who is Jewish, who is a big critical of Israel, which is pretty rare because the Jews are very ethnocentric. I think everybody realizes that by now. And then a guy named Josh Hammer, who I think works for Newsweek magazine as a columnist, a proud Jew, who used to be the editor-in-large at the Daily Wire years ago, and once tweeted in 2019 that, quote, Jew hatred is inherent in European DNA. So he is blaming white people and saying that it's inherent in our DNA that all white people just hate Jews. Some people are very upset that that debate even occurred because they don't want Dave Smith's ideas to be heard. And one of those people is Seth Dillon over at the Babylon Bee. And every time I see one of his tweets, it's not anything to do with jokes or satire or parodies. It's literally just defense of Israel 24/7. And he tweeted out that there would have been nothing wrong with excluding Dave from the event. That's not censorship, but there was nothing wrong with inviting and challenging him either. Debates like this are usually worth having. Adding, well done, Josh Hammer. Also, Megyn Kelly had Ben Shapiro on her show to tell him that she's not drinking his Kool-Aid anymore and to argue with him that this isn't important at all and that there was no conspiracy whatsoever. I'll spare you from having to listen to his voice again, but that's what she did. She had him on the show literally to argue with him about how he's a moron. Subscribe to my channel if you're new here, and if you want to sponsor my channel and get a great shirt and a great conversation starter and a signal of what kind of a person you are. The front desk guy at the gym just noticed mine as soon as I walked in the door the other day. Head on over to markdice.com and order your Alligator Alcatraz shirt. Also available in a more subtle version if you don't want to be wearing the big version. Some people like a little more subtlety in their designs. Also available in a tank top as well and a woman's cut. And the women's cut now, at least in this shirt, are available in pink as well. Okay, so head on over to markdice.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.